Eliud Kipchoge, ladies and gentlemen. Arguably, no, not even arguably, the greatest distance runner of all time. Pretty certain that he ran out of the womb. This is a person that has been running his entire life, running to school, running after that. So when I say don't copy Eliud Kipchoge's training, what I mean by that is 99.9% of us are just not going to be able to train with the frequency that he does and put the mileage in that he does. But it doesn't mean that there aren't lots of things that he does that we can take from his training and put into ours, which is something I'm going to explore in a couple of weeks when I train like Kipchoge just for 1 week, because as I say, long term, not going to happen. But this week's video is actually more about how you, as a beginner, as an intermediate, as an advanced runner, it doesn't matter what level you're at, it's how you can build endurance safely, keep yourself in the game and realise your amazing potential, because I think at the end of the day as runners, that's all we really want, is to be the best version of ourselves that we can be in training and in life. Okay, bit of background first. Why do I say build endurance safely? Why do I say build it slowly? Well, it's as simple as this. The longer that we run for, the tireder that we get, and the less conditioned our muscles are, then our movement patterns break down and we start to run with a poor technique, which then in turn builds into an overuse injury potentially, because our body's compensating for weaker muscles, poor technique, and changing the way it moves to enable us to run for longer. So in theory, all of the things that we do that can keep us fresher for longer means we're going to be able to train for longer. So we're going to look at all of those things so that our technique doesn't break down, so that our cardiovascular system can keep up, so that we can run happy, find the joy. Because there's nothing more torrid than finding every single run grim, and that's not the aim for today. Alright, first two tips, and I'm going to talk about them very briefly because I'm aware I pretty much talk about them in every video and I don't want to bore you. So if you're brand new to the channel, first of all, welcome aboard. Second of all, I'll link a video above that explains in slightly more detail than I'm about to now, because I'm aware that I do talk about it a lot, but they are non-negotiables, and if the camera's shaking it's because the dog's around my foot here. So the first one is strength and conditioning and prehab. There is no runner out there that is going to get away long term without investing in a little bit of strength and conditioning, making sure the muscles are able to up the distance, to up the endurance. So I think that is probably a non-negotiable from beginner runner to elite. We have to invest in... voice went again. We have to invest in strength and conditioning, and to an extent prehab as well, and I just regularly go for a tune-up every month to make sure that everything's okay. And the second one is slow means slow. Don't get yourself out for every single session and beast yourself. There is absolutely no benefit to be had there. What you want to be doing is training your aerobic base, your cardiovascular endurance, and you can only really do that well by making sure you train very slow, usually slower than you think that you need to. So you need to, again, I'll put a video up here to put a little bit more background onto it, but you really need to look into how slow is slow and make sure you're doing that to make sure that your body has the engine underneath when you want to put the tough stuff, the hard stuff on top. But I'm not going to talk about it in too much depth here. They're the first two tips, really important, non-negotiable. Now, the first of the three tips that are relevant for any level of runner, and you can implement them right now and you can put them into your training tomorrow, is 10% rule. And it's not a hard and fast rule, okay, it doesn't have to be exactly 10%, but what I mean by 10% is that you should really look to progressively overload your training, whether it be distance, whether it be intensity, by roughly 10% per week. So if you're running 10 kilometers 1 week, then maybe you should be looking to run 11 kilometers the next week, and roughly 10% build. Of course, the distances are going to get bigger the higher up you go anyway, but the 10% rule, what it does is it means your body is able to keep up with the overload. If you go from 10 kilometers to 16 kilometers, your body has been put under too much stress, and it might not long term be able to just deal with that, because it has to adapt. You don't just go into the gym, see the biggest weights and try and lift them, do you? Do you? I hope not. I certainly, well, I don't go to a gym, but you know what I'm saying. You have to progressively build up to the big weights in order for you to be able to lift them. You can't just go in there. And it's the same with running. So 10% is a good rough indicator of how much you should build each week, not just in your one long run at the weekend, your weekly distances as a total. If you're running 30 kilometers one week, you might look to run 33 in total the next week, because that's 10%. It's not even roughly, that is 10%. All right. Next tip is periodization, and with just a really basic knowledge of what periodization is, it's going to allow you to take your training to the next level, but also allow you to train safely and build safely. So basically, periodization is the theory of training in blocks, cycles, let's say. So for me, the cycles work in 4, and I'm gonna just draw like that. So I have 3 weeks, slightly progressing, slight overload, build, and then 1 week here, which is recovery. And that's when you let the adaptations from the 3 weeks of training happen. So you need a recovery week in your cycle, in your periodization. Periodization. It's one of those words now that doesn't even sound like a word. And the good thing about periodization is that you can have a different focus in each block. So you might do a few blocks building your aerobic base, but then you might do a block, say, focusing on your lactate threshold, where for the 3 weeks of that block, you really focus on workouts that are going to push your lactate threshold up a little bit, or your VO2 max. So you can work on different things in different blocks. And when you zoom out, the season plan starts to take shape, and all because you're just working in blocks of 4, 3 weeks of work, 1 week of recovery, and repeat. Now this next tip is something that I personally credit with smashing my PBs last year, pretty much out the park across all distances. Now, as I say, cross training is something that I completely credit with all of my PBs from 5k, 10k, 10 mile, half marathon last year. I smashed them all, and it's because I spent a lot of time training for an Ironman. I spent a lot of time training my aerobic base on the bike. And the thing is, some athletes, they're just not set up to be able to run huge distances in a week, and I'm just one of those. And there's quite a lot of us out there that have to find alternative means to get our aerobic base work in, because just increasing the mileage on my legs usually ends in overuse injuries, even for someone like me who's run all my life. So there is an element of knowing your limits and knowing what your body is capable of and adapting to that. So I did a lot of miles on the bike last year, but you know what? It doesn't have to be bike miles. Lots of people use an elliptical because it's a great non-impact way of keeping that running motion going. People can swim, you can cycle. There's a lot of options out there for you if you find that when you increase the mileage, even if you've been doing it for a while, that you're picking up an injury, then there are other ways. There's more than one way to skin a cat, which I heard someone say the other day. It's a very weird saying, because why would you want to skin a cat in the first place? It's just it's a strange phrase, but there is more than one way to become a good runner, and sometimes it's by not running at all. The thing is, when my cycling translated to my running on the road, it genuinely felt like my cardiovascular system wasn't being stressed at all when I was running times that I never thought capable of. Within a 10-mile race, I ran a 35-minute 10k, which previously I wasn't able to do on a 10k. But it's because each week I was dedicating a good maybe 3 to 5 hours on the bike and working hard on aerobic base, and it really, and I mean really, paid dividends. And that is a really good hour of aerobic base cardiovascular work with no cost on impact on the legs. Banked. Hard though, but well worth it. Alright, now we're getting into the interesting stuff. If you're a beginner runner, this may not immediately apply to you, but it certainly could be relevant to you down the line. And if you're an intermediate runner or an advanced, this might be just something that you want to think about, and it's certainly something that paid dividends for me when I was training for Ironman. It kept me safe and it kept me consistent. And that is the theory of double run days. Now, they sound horrible. They don't have to be. All I did when I was training for an Ironman is, instead of running for an hour and a half one day, which, let's face it, when I'm training for an Ironman, I'm tired. My body was likely towards the end of those types of runs to kind of break down a little bit, movement patterns break down and the technique fall apart. So all I did was I ran 45 minutes in the morning, 45 minutes in the evening, and I got 2 runs in. And there's major benefits. Let me explain. Well, the first one is obvious, like I've just said, is within 45 minutes I can hold my technique together, and if I can do that twice in a day, then I've got my hour and a half run in, and I've held my technique together, and I've reduced my risk of overuse injury. So that's a win right there. But another benefit of a double run day is that when you run, it releases human growth hormone, which is essentially the hormone the body releases to try and repair and rebuild your muscles. If you run twice, you're releasing 2 lots of human growth hormone, and it actually helps improve the process of muscle repair because you've got 2 lots of human growth hormone. And let's not forget endorphins. So is a double run day for everybody? No, it's absolutely not, because I would say if you're a beginner or even intermediate in the early days of your training, there's so much more benefit that can be had from a long run or from just consistency. But if you're looking at training Ironman or ultra marathon or even marathon, and you want to get some safe but increased mileage in, then a double run day might be something that you want to think about. But you just have to make sure that you take care of yourself, and we're talking obviously stretching after both, making sure we're prepared and warmed up beforehand. It doesn't have to be hard sessions. You don't have to do a really hard interval session in the morning and an easy one in the evening. They don't even have to be the same length. I built up. So what I did was a 45-minute in the morning at first, and then a 30-minute in the afternoon, and I built up to a 45. So again, using progressive overload, I built up my double runs. And my final tip, for me, it's one of the most important, and it underpins everything that I do, is that your mindset needs to be a long-term mindset. So first of all, if you run, you have to accept that you're a runner. You don't run for a while before you're a runner. There's no validation, there's no accreditation that you need to become a runner. If you run at all, then you're a runner. But also, I just want to tell you a story that I saw recently that Arnold Schwarzenegger said. I think he was asked why he still goes to the gym when he's in his 70s, and he said, why did I have breakfast this morning? Why did I wake up this morning? It's because it is very ingrained. It is part of him. He doesn't know how not to do it. He said he will do it till the day he dies. And I feel the same way about running. I'm going to do it until the day I die. Hopefully not literally on the day. Hopefully it's not the thing that quit. Anyway. But I'm gonna run forever. That's my mindset. My aim is to be world champion in the 90 to 95 age group of triathlon. That is my long-term aim. And what you'll find by having these really long-term mindset goals, this really long-term attitude to running, is that it makes you take a step back and not rush anything. It makes you not cut any corners, and it makes you build safely. Is there any rush getting to a marathon when you've got numerous years to do it? I didn't run my first marathon until I was nearly 40. I took my sweet time, and it was the same with triathlon. I started with sprint triathlons when I took it up in 2012. 2013, mainly sprint, 1 Olympic. 2014, mainly Olympic. 2015, my first half iron. So I really took a long-term, I'm going to be in this for life view. And if you take that, then you are much more likely to make the right decisions for you as you go with your training, and not rush anything and not feel rushed. So there you go. 7 rules for life. No, not life. Well, life. 7 rules for building endurance safely, but you could also call that life because we want it to be part of our life. Now, really exciting announcement. You see this t-shirt here? This was our first run of merch, which I'm really proud of, and it is now back available in the shops. But I'm going to put the link in the description. We have a whole new range of merch coming out. We have new t-shirts, new vests, and we've added hoodies into the range. So get a look at these. If you like any of them, then the link is in the description for you to order. We're really proud of them. It took some time, but we're really happy with what we've come up with. So I hope that you like it too. And if you want, it's there to order right now. The shop's open. And what's coming up on the channel? Well, there's content coming up for every single level of runner. There's lots of races that we've signed up to for you to watch. If you want further proof about how endurance training long-term works, then I am going to link a video here, which is Mary's first ultra marathon, which was 3 years after she thought she'd never be able to run past 5k. And look what she did. And also I've linked an ultimate beginner to marathon training plan that wherever you are, whatever level you're at, whatever distance you're running at per week, if you want structure, you can jump into this plan, you can just pick it, and it will take you from where you are to the next level. And it's completely free, downloadable, clickable links, the works. I just want to help people. So if you feel like this video's helped you at all, then consider subscribing. No hard sell from us, but if you want to join the journey, if you want to learn more, and if you want to be the best version of yourself, then you need to become a mess hap, in my humble opinion. As always, thank you for watching. New video coming on Wednesday, which will be a beginner to 5K training plan, new style, and loads more content thereafter. Has anyone ever used the word thereafter? Loads more content coming. Thanks for watching.